Riley owned the house that we lived in, and we were right across the street from the CYO Hall. We were also right across the street from McGill High School. We were next door to Bishop Tulin High School. We were down the street from St. Mary's Church, and we were a little further down the street from St. Mary's School. So guess where we went to school? No, you're wrong. All my sisters had to go to the Convent of Mercy downtown because my mother had gone there. What I'd like to talk about today, to the extent that I can, is I want to talk about what valor is. The definition of valor is courage in battle. And when you think about people who serve this country, there's probably a large number that didn't serve in battle. In my specific case, I did have, if you want to call it an opportunity, to serve in small battles in the Delta in South Vietnam. And I may get into that a little bit later. But before I do, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about why it's so important for me to be here today. My uncle, Woody Thornton, my mother's brother, was one of the people who brought the USS Alabama here. He was the one that raised funds, talked to people, and the reason was he was a cook on the USS Alabama in the North Atlantic and also in the Pacific. He served on the USS Alabama throughout World War II. My uncle, Robert Thornton, another brother of my mother, he also was a Navy CB in World War II, and he was in the reserves when the USS Alabama was brought from mothball fleet to here, and he refurbished the ship to make it, I guess, okay for tourists to go on. So we have a family connection, and that's what sort of compelled me to want to do this when Anicia asked me to be involved. And I started to step back and think about all the people in my family who were veterans. And the numbers are crazy. Close family members range in the area of 30, but we're not a military family. But what we were was Ned and Clorinda served this community. And that's kind of what I'd like to talk about, is the difference between service and how it gets to a point of valor. My mother ran a lot of Catholic charity organizations when she was living on 12 North Lafayette. She was the president of the Diocesan Council of Catholic Women. She was with the Lady Sodality. She collected money and had fundraising drives that built up the money that was needed to help people who were having trouble. And so, along with taking care of the 13 children, 4 of whom were lost before we all got to be grown up, and dealt with those particular stresses on her life, she still had the time to help others. She still had the time to give to her community. She taught us that every day of our lives. My sister Tony and my brother Mike took those lessons to heart and really embraced them. But all of the male siblings, my brothers, the 5 of us of the original 8 that survived to be adults, we all went into the service in the United States. I'm going to talk about each one of my brothers to sort of give you an idea as to what it was like in the 1960s. You know, along with Flower Children and all that kind of stuff. People that grew up in Mobile served their country. When they were faced with the reality of the draft or what you joined, you served your country, the way it was. And in our family, there was no choice. My father, along with being a newspaper man and a publicity chairman for the Alabama Dry Dock Shipbuilding Company, which is now called Austal or something. He did all the publicity for my mother's. But he also, on his own, would go out and help people that he knew that were in trouble. And that became important. I was a sophomore in high school, my father died. And I had to come back to Mobile from Kentucky and get ready for his funeral. And And I tell the story, and it always sort of touches me a little bit. But when I was at my father's funeral, I just remembered that because we were so close to St. Mary's Church, that we were always called to run up there and serve mass for somebody. Maybe somebody couldn't make it because they were sick. Or maybe somebody needed somebody to do a funeral mass. Or somebody needed somebody to do a wedding. Well, so it was normal for my mother to say to me, get on the altar and serve mass for your father's funeral. I had been at St. Mary's Church for a number of weddings and funerals and all that kind of thing. And the church would maybe get 1/4, maybe half full, but that was about it. The only time the church really filled up was on like Christmas Eve, for the midnight mass. But what I saw in that particular day, on that particular mass, was the church crowded like I had never seen in my life. It was from all the aisles in the church. If any of you have ever been to St. Mary's Church, it's a fairly large church. It holds about 2,000 people. But this church was filled. And it was filled in a way that I didn't really fully appreciate until I thought about it later. Half the people in that church were African American. And I knew that my father had helped a lot of different people in his life. And those people came to participate in my father's funeral. And just let me know what the importance of service to your community is. Because people do care. People really do understand the kind of love that you give to help the people around you who are struggling, to help the people around you who need help, who need a hand. And so my father and my mother taught us that. And so in 1960, when my two older brothers were the first to face the fact that they were going to have to go into the service, as usual, we tried to figure out what the best approach could be. So my brother, Woody, who was probably the most intelligent and smartest of all of us, decided, I'm not going to college. The heck with college. I'm going to go and join the Air Force because I get a chance to go like to Italy or to Rome or to all places around the world. Maybe I'll end up in Asia. I'll have a lot of fun. It'll be great. I'll be in the Air Force and they'll teach me some technical nonsense and I'll see the world. Well, my brother went from Mobile to Keesler, the basic training in Texas, Lackland Air Force Base. And then he went from Lackland to Keesler in Biloxi and became an air traffic controller. And then from there, he went to Columbus, Mississippi. So his international, you think, oh yeah. Well, so he spent most of his time in the service in Mississippi. But guess what? Not a single airplane ran into another airplane in Columbus, Mississippi. That's what I'm talking about. And that's service. So I know you're laughing. It's funny, but it's true.